So a few weeks ago, I made a video on how to beat Unchained, but I still had a lot more to learn about the deck back then, and there are a lot of things that I didn't cover in that video. So this video right here will focus on the absolute best ways to beat the deck with the new experience that I have acquired. Now I can finally say that I played against Unchained in 2 consecutive YCSs, and I know their strengths and weaknesses way better than before. And with Kashtira now out of the picture, I can definitely imagine more Unchained in the metagame now. So knowing how to beat it is an absolute necessity. Anyways, there is another necessity before this video starts. And it is for you to smash the like and subscribe button. Thank you so much for everything, and now let's get right into it. So the Unchained deck is a very powerful mid-range deck that can either combo off with one single card, so Tour Guide, or just a bunch of 2-card combos. Pretty much any combination of 2 cards can play with each other, so the deck is very consistent. You could draw hands of like Orha plus a Spell or Trap, or Sharvara and a Spell and Trap, and it's pretty much always the same. And there's also a few spreadsheets available on the internet for free, so go check them out if you still don't really know how the deck works. The thing is though, some of these combos are not perfect, and the pro players are, maybe not really telling you the full truth. And the fact of the matter is, most 2-card combos are completely invulnerable to Nibiru. So yeah, if you thought that relying on Nibiru would actually be the play against Unchained, you are unfortunately very wrong. And look, even though I do agree that Ashe pretty much shuts down all their 1 or 2-card combos, if they have one extender to push through it, it's as if you never even Ashe them. And to make matters worse, the deck is notorious for playing cards like Triple Tactic Talents and Thrust, and those cards heavily punish you for hand trapping them. And look, nothing is worse than playing a deck that loses to D-Barrier, and then you hand trap your opponent, and then they get the D-Barrier off of the Thrust. Like, your situation literally went from bad to worse. At this point, your safest bet is probably just to rely on board breakers instead of hand traps. You're gonna have to beat them at their own game. Let them break on the Triple Tactic spell cards. They might actually draw 2 in their hand, and if you don't hand trap them, they're useless. Now, what is their end board, and how are you trying to beat it? Usually, it consists of the Unchained Soul of Rage Link 2 monster, as well as the DDD rank 6 Xyz monster, and the trap card that destroys. So a Link, an Xyz, and a trap. Yeah, it's not that much, but it's still good enough because all those monsters are very annoying, and they all float like crazy. And evenly matched is actually really bad against the deck because they can actually use their escape to destroy themselves and then use the Yama to revive back their Unchained Soul of Rage. So in other words, it does nothing. And cards like Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse, and Kaijus only really trade 1 for 1, which is not good enough. But like my grandmother always said, why trade 1 for 1 when you can trade 1 for 2? And this is where monster stealing cards overperform. We've got Marionette Might, Change of Heart, Triple Tactic Talents, Enemy Controller, Mind Control, etc. You'll always want to steal their Caesar, rank 6 Xyz monster, because if you do that, then you can actually force their trap card to destroy your Caesar, because otherwise your Caesar can negate their Unchained Soul of Rage to link off using your monster. And you can also apply pressure on potentially summoning a Zeus on top of the Caesar and clearing the full board. So in other words, one single card gets rid of 3 interruptions. That's pretty nasty. But yes, resolving Zeus is in fact disgusting against the deck, so if you can actually summon an Xyz monster that can be targeted, you can just attack and then main phase 2 summon a Zeus and then use the effect, and they don't really play any negation, so it's probably gonna resolve. Anyways, I've also said in the past that anything that negates graveyard effects is always really good against Unchained. Nothing beats the feeling of resolving Abyss Dweller or Gravekeeper's Inscription or Silent Graveyard against them. But watch out, because if you're doing that, make sure you don't have like a Dark Law on the field. I'm saying that because I've heard stories of a guy using Gravekeeper's Inscription and then summoning a Rizart. Thinking, you're trying to negate everything in the graveyard, but because of your Rizart, everything is going in the Banished instead. And the Unchained cards still trigger their effects in the Banished. So in other words, the Rizart was literally helping the opponent in that instance. So yeah, this only really applies to Flundereeze players if they have Shifter. Make sure you don't use Shifter and Gravekeeper's Inscription. It is extremely stupid. But at the same time, Flundereeze players are Flundereeze players, so I can't ask for too much. But yeah, without their graveyard effects, the Unchained deck just looks like a starter deck. Same if it's playing against Flundereeze, because the Flundereeze matchup is completely unwinnable for Unchained. I'm not exaggerating, it's literally unplayable. The only interruption that the Unchained deck has against Flundereeze is the trap card to destroy. Nice deck, Bernard. But yeah, Flundereeze, all they really do is normal summon. They're not really special summoning, so the Link 2 can never link off using your monster, and the Caesar can't negate anything. And once Empen is on the board, all hope is lost. Yeah, the only way Unchained can really play in that instance would be to kind of control the game state with Abominable, discard 1 to pop a card on the field. Which is absolutely pathetic. Your Link monsters become vanillas under Empen, and you always have to summon all of your monsters in defense. Yeah, no fun for the whole family. Yeah, no wonder the stupid bird deck is seeing more play. Anyways, Unchained has several more flaws. Against any branded based strategies, they typically struggle against 2 kind of monsters. The first one is Mirror Jade, the second one is Rindbrum. The Unchained deck isn't really trying to bounce back or banish your cards, but rather destroying them or linking them off. Therefore, your monsters are always hitting the graveyard, which is very good news for Rinbrum. Basically, this card is a negate and bounce, which is already really good against Unchained because they're not really going to be floating. But once they get rid of Rinbrum, and they have to do it eventually, it's gonna worsen the situation for them because you can use the effect to revive Backfallen of Albaz and then fuse using their monster to summon Mirror Jade. So one single Rinbrum leads to 3 interruptions. And again, their engine is not really well equipped to beat that. But to be fair, if Unchained goes first against Despia, they usually win. That is due to the fact that they can negate the Branded Fusion with the Caesar and then destroy the Branded Lost with the Escape. This is why the #1 card that you always have to worry about against Unchained is the Caesar. Funny enough, the actual Unchained card themselves are really good, but not good enough to scare you that much. Unchained typically has a bad matchup quote-unquote against combo decks because they have a lot of gas in order to push through all their interruptions. And again, they're not really trying to focus on hand traps and everything, so they're never turning on triple tactic talents and thrust. Oh, and by the way, just to make myself completely clear here, Bestial Druisworm is not at all a good answer to the Unchained board, so Dragon Link does not have a good matchup against the deck. Competent players will always find a way to pretty much turn their 2-card combo into the full board without getting a single light and dark in the graveyard before the summon of Caesar. So in other words, by the time you can summon the Druid Worm, it's going to be getting negated by the Caesar anyways. Unless your opponent's starting play is normal summon Tour Guide. Then the Tour Guide will always be that one dark monster in the graveyard. But if you can find a way to summon Druisworm successfully, then you're pretty much in a good position because you can send cards to the graveyard and get rid of board just like Zeus would do. So just make sure you have a lot of non-destructive removal and you should be fine. Focus on lingering floodgates instead of continuous floodgates, and make sure that you don't really use a lot of monster effects on their turn to avoid turning on the triple tactic spells. The deck definitely gives off vibes of a broken deck, but that's especially due to the fact that people have no idea how to beat it. It's the best deck to prey on people's ignorance, but it starts to lose its edge against prepared players. And even though the deck is extremely consistent and you're always gonna have full combo, it usually draws anywhere between 1 to 2 bricks in each hand. So sometimes you have to special summon like the blue dog from hand instead of from deck. Or sometimes you don't necessarily end on the trap card that you really want because you had to go for an awkward sequencing. And regardless of how your board is, you're always going to be losing out to pretty much the same board breakers every single time. So keep all of that in mind and you should be fine against Unchained. Anyways, that's all I had for this video, so guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.